Welcome in, everyone, to the Crowded Booth here on a Monday evening, and football season is officially in the rearview mirror in terms of the games that will be playing on the field, draft hype, big boards, all that kind of stuff, but it is rankings season as we get into our pre-spring rankings. The SEC, the ACC, Maxwell talking about stuff that I don't know what's happening in the Discord, but you can join and talk about those things if you prefer. We got a new sponsor that we're going to be talking about here on tonight's show. And as always, make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. We're going to play that here in just a second. But before we do, Ralph Leary, Will Mannis, alongside myself and his Bryce Coon on tonight's episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. Coming on The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.
Welcome into The Crowded Booth. My name is Bryce Coon alongside Will Mannis and Ralph Leary. And wow, we were in the studio. This is what this is called, the virtual online studio, 30 minutes before. Had no technical problems. My camera started glitching. And Will is he's Marty McFly. He's in 1980, and he went back to the future. So Will's with a little aesthetic on his camera tonight. So
nobody knows what's going on.
It's just
nobody know. First of all, if you've been around long enough, you know that we don't know nobody to begin with, and much less technology.
Especially that guy.
We don't know what's going on.
Will's tech savvy ability, there was a period of time for about a month that Will could not get his microphone to work, and I think he'd get so frustrated because Ralph and I just be like, hey, the little button, because those mics they're cool, they're great value, but you know, the fact that they have that little like touch press button is you can see right there, like touch press there, right there. Geriatric Will.
I am old.
Not to be confused with Alan Howard. So there is that. But hey, we welcome you into the podcast, talking a little bit of college football as we do each and every single week, back with the live episodes. And kind of how we're going to be doing this, fellas, is we've got conference coach rankings. Obviously, we really pay attention to the SEC and the ACC here on the show. So we're going to have SEC tonight, ACC coach rankings, and then Monday we'll come out with our full slate, top 10 coaches in college football. And then we'll move forward with some quarterback rankings. We'll move forward with team rankings, and what really is going to kind of lead us up into the spring football, which is kind of crazy. I know a lot of teams have kind of released when their spring games are going to be, when their spring practices are. It's kind of crazy that we're, just about to that point. But before we do, a couple things we want to mention. First off, if you haven't already, make sure you take advantage. I did get, some good feedback from the people over at Underdog that you guys have been taking advantage of the deals across the Believe Network and specifically with the Crowded Booth. So we appreciate that. And you can still utilize it. Yes, football is over, but obviously we've got NBA, which after, last weekend in Mobile, I'm not touching Underdog with NBA, but I might touch a little bit of college basketball, but we'll see.
Never again.
Yeah, never again. That was brutal. That was brutal. Check out the Discord for the amazing picture of both Ralph and Will sweating it out there. That was, what was that? What game was that? Was it Purdue? Who was it? Purdue, Indiana?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, correct.
Since then, Mike Woodson said
it
he
hit,
might come
though,
back.
didn't it, Will? It hit.
It did hit. It did hit. There was a last-minute heave three that went off the backboard that could have Really
No,
throwing a
that
wrench in some things.
That was Indiana on Saturday when they ruined everything for me.
Yeah, Ralph's done with Indiana in general. But if you want to play, here's how you can do it. Tired of the old, outdated way of playing fantasy? It's time to try Underdog Fantasy. If you want to make some picks on your favorite sports, check out Underdog Fantasy Pick'em game, where you choose higher or lower on between 2 to 8 players, and you can win up to 1,000 times your initial entry. Make sure to use code CROWDED when you sign up, so you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Think you know ball better than us? Don't miss out on this great offer and compete against the crew to showcase your knowledge today. All right, so make sure you take advantage of that deal. Going to continue to run through a little bit of the month of February as well. And like I said, play to win the game. In the famous words of Herm Edwards. That's the Herm Edwards we like, not the one that was at Arizona State. Long story. I will say this. As people know, this time last year, we started to kind of get some coaches on the show. 2 of those said coaches did get fired from their jobs. So I don't know if that's a good thing when we send out these requests.
Hey, still friends of the program.
Still friends of the program. And now, look, Brian Bohannon's on Tech on Georgia Tech staff. And then I don't really know what Tom Herman's doing right now, to be honest with you. Should have got Coach Rock on the pod. He was wasn't he the interim, by the way? Or was that, no, Chad Lunsford, I think, was the interim head coach. During I don't know who the interim.
I think Coach Rock was the interim. Mm-hmm.
He might have been, but some of the invitations have already been sent out, and I will tell you, fellas. I haven't
Gavin knows. Where's Gavin?
I will tell you this: there is an ACC head coach that's not in Dallas that has agreed to come on the show. And
does he shower?
He does shower. He does shower.
All right.
And it's one that I'll just say this to tease it, and then it kind of gives it away. We were not very high on last year at all. And so, yeah, we're going to bring him on the show and talk with him. So
he's not a head coach. That's now a coordinator.
Coach. He is a head coach.
No, he's a head coach.
Yeah.
I think I know who we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Do they play in an NFL stadium?
No,
not
that
the other
ACC team. The other ACC team we didn't like a lot, but they had a pretty good season, I guess you could say. I think they went to a bowl game. I don't know, but anyways, we'll talk with them hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and then obviously some more coaches are going to be rounding out there as well. So, all that being said, we've got SEC head coach rankings, but before we do that, I did mention we got a new sponsor. I'm rocking the hat. Will's got the hat, the same one that Ralph does. We were rocking it 2 weeks ago in Mobile before the deal even went live. Shout out, #not an ad. We went to Taco Mama in Mobile. The guy taking the order said, hey, those are fire hats. We want to get a part of that. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Georgia Golf Company. Now, look, Georgia roots, obviously they've got some play towards some, Masters-like gear. You can obviously with the hats that Ralph and Will are rocking. But fellas, I don't know if you've seen this, and I even ran this by a couple people, the logo, and it's this design that is essentially like, if you go to the driving range, you got the bucket of balls, right? And, they fall over. Well, this one has a basket with some peaches falling out. It's an elite design. And so make sure you check out Georgia Golf Company. Look, Georgia roots. They have great quality items. It's built for golfers both on and off the course. And I will tell you this too. They've got great customer service. I've enjoyed working with those fellas over there as well. And so you can use code TCB, not just for your first purchase, but TCB15 at any point, get 15% off. They've got some nice head covers too. So if you order the hat through Bruce, it takes 3 months to get it. Well, that's why we partner with them, and you can get it right then from there. This took literally about, I want to say like 3 days to get here. And that was from, Georgia down to Baton Rouge. So all things considered, check out our friends over there. We're going to be doing some more stuff with them content-wise, throughout the spring leading up into the Masters. And it helps us, but you also kind of get to benefit some cool gear there as well. And like I said, limited, not just the hats, but they've got T-shirts, they've got polos, they've got decals of some, course map. They've got the Range Bucket tee, which is just a really cool T-shirt. I like it a lot. I've got one on the way that we'll be wearing on the show and everything. And nice polo that's very, very comfortable as well. So while we've exchanged pleasantries, we've talked about Will's Back to the Future trip, where he went to go salvage Pat Dye and resurrect him and bring him back to life to bring him, with that. All things considered, it's time to talk SEC coaches. So, fellas, let's pull up the rankings. I've got it right here. And I did not realize, Ralph, that when I had to reset that it took it out. So it's back in the rotation. I'll go first. I'll take first. So I'll go first here with my rankings of the SEC head coaches. Now, here, listen to me. Someone might come back and watch this in May or in April or June. These are pre-spring rankings. Now, not that much is going to change probably pre-spring or into the summer. We'll see, what happens. But this is, very
You
weighty.
never know. Some coach, there might be a coach that goes to Mexico and won't answer his phone when his bosses call him. That's happened before post-spring football.
He's so hurt. If you know a good the Pastoral Institute in Columbus, they do a great job. Not an ad, but Will may need to go talk to them if things do go off the rails. As it goes. All right. So, anyways, here we go. SEC head coaches. Ralph, I'll pull it up. You can take the background there off. Here are my SEC head coach rankings heading into 2025. I'll give a couple thoughts, and then, fellas, I'm going to give 2 or 3 thoughts on things I like, and then you kind of you can quiz me or ask me questions as well. The first thing I wanted to start off with, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly where he sits on y'all's rankings, but I've got Jeff Lebby at 16, really because I feel like this is just an incomplete grade. Mississippi State it's in really, really bad shape when he took over. Zach Arnett was not the guy that they needed to go to. They could go to at the time, and obviously in hindsight shouldn't have gone to. But they go with Jeff Lebby, and it kind of sucks. Michael Van Buren looked really, really good at times in 2024. He's now going to be QB2 and down here in Baton Rouge. So they've got a lot of things to figure out, I think. But in terms of where they're kind of going as a program, I've got them as 16, kind of an incomplete grade. So really just kind of look at my rankings as 1 through 15. We had a conversation in the Discord about this. I've got Kirby Smart 1, Sarkisian 2. I believe 2 of us have that top 2. 1 does not. My reasoning is just strictly back-to-back playoff appearances. I think I like where Texas is heading in terms of their program, just to be consistently in that top 5, top 6 range. This is where I think we're going to differ once again. I've got Brian Kelly 3, Lane Kiffin 4. Look, there's a strong argument for both to be in this three spot, I believe. I mean, I feel like you could go either way. Lane Kiffin has taken Ole Miss. Will's talked a lot about this, taking Ole Miss to heights they have never seen as a program, and especially in a consistent manner. And there's something to be said about that. Way he is utilized, regardless how you feel about Lane Kiffin, the way he has utilized the transfer portal, it has worked for Ole Miss in terms of being successful.
He is a marketing genius.
Yes. Regardless if you feel like he's a troll or not, he's good at what he does. Now, if you're only marking by SEC titles and playoff appearances, then I think that you live in a foreign land where, we can't rescue you from. You're on that island, and that's where you've planted your flag, and we're just not going to be able to help you out because that's just where you sit. But Brian Kelly, to me, I know Jonesy says, calls me a homer here with this. Once again, still trying to find that paycheck because God knows with an 8-month-old I could use it, and then the car bill I got coming up. So all things considered, my thing with Brian Kelly at 3 is, you go back 3 years ago, Ed Orgeron left this program in shambles. They only had 30 players going into the 2021 season, it was. And so, or 2022 season, I should say, coming out of that 21 year. And I feel like he stabilized things. Now, they still have to get over the hump. Brian Kelly has won some big games, beating Ole Miss down here last year, beating Alabama 2 years ago. But they've really kind of faltered at times when they could have made the jump. Most notably for me, guys, and I know – you guys have kind of pointed this out when we talked about it during the regular season. The game that sticks out to me was that road game at A&M, where they were up by double digits. If they could win that game, they're in control of their destiny to make it to the SEC championship and to the playoff. And the wheels just kind of fell off. So these coaches are not without faults. It's just where I see them. I've got Heupel over Beamer. I think it's really close. I'm giving the nod to Beamer or to Heupel here just because of the playoff appearance. And then I got Kalen DeBoer and Drink. DeBoer, to me, sits in an interesting spot because I do think you have to look at the track record and the resume to say that he's better than the guys behind him. But in terms of where he is currently, the jury's obviously, still out on that. Eli, obviously, they went, 10-3 this year, kind of an unimpressive 10-3 season, but it's Missouri, and you now have gotten Missouri in back-to-back double-digit win seasons. They have some life. They've got a good NIL foundation. I feel like he does a solid job there. When I get to the back half of mine, and I'll kind of cut it off here, I talked about Lebby. I'm going to go 15, Sam Pittman. Pittman saved his job But this is a guy who's only won 7 games, I believe, 2 times in his 5 or 6 years. They've only gone to a bowl game, I think, 2 or 3 times in his 5 to 7 years, 5 to 6 years in Arkansas. So he's got to make a move. We'll see what they look like, this season. Well, I've got your boy Hugh there at 14 behind Brent Venables. I could have easily put Hugh at 13. I do think that Venables is just currently, for me personally, I mean, we'll talk about on the hot seat, I think Venables is on a hotter seat than Freeze is a little bit, just because of Venables' ability to recruit and what that roster is going to look like. But that's very close. Napier and Stoops at 11 and 12 could also be flip-flopped. Napier was hot towards the end of the year. I know I've got Stoops higher than you guys. It's Kentucky. It's not a football school. And he's done pretty well. I do believe that he's probably hit his limit in terms of what he could do at Kentucky. But I think he's done overall a pretty good job there. I got Clark Lea at 10. I love what Clark Lea has done with the program. They switched completely what they were going to be as an identity of a program heading into this past season. And we're going to see, is he dealing with lightning in a bottle? They get Diego Pavia back. And then I got Elko at 9. I think Elko, I'll tell you this. 5 weeks into the season, I could slot Elko at 7 easily. I could make a case for Elko to slot above Drink and DeBoer, but Texas A&M was way too topsy-turvy. It was his first year. They were way too up and down. So all that to be considered. That's my top 16. That's, like I said, top 15 with Levy being incomplete. So I'll give the floor. Will, any questions or kind of comments on this without getting into yours? I want you to be able to talk about yours and how it differs.
Clark Lea at 10, really? I mean, seems really low to me. I mean, Vanderbilt, the hardest place to win in the SEC. I think. Yeah. I don't think that can be really argued. You say they changed their identity. They had to, and they had their most successful season doing it. And I think that's a lot on Clark Lea. It's not just because he, and, kind of hinting at what I'll say, basically brought in the New Mexico State offense, player-wise and philosophically. But Clark Lea took over that defense. His background's in defense. He took over the responsibility of being the defensive coordinator, and it was much improved. I think the job he did this year, I mean, you're looking at maybe top half, I think, entering 2025.
Yeah, no, and so like I said, for me, I'm hesitant in the sense, was it just lightning a ball winner? If they post another 7-win season, then it's like, okay, he's a top 7 head coach in the SEC because, right, like what you said of the challenge of where he is. Mm-hmm. I can't argue with that. I think that because of where they are, maybe is why I went with where Elko. I think the ceiling at A&M to be more successful is higher than at Vanderbilt. Everyone knows that
significantly.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, yeah, no, I mean, if you would have told me, Bryce, and I mean, I'm not going to spoil yours, but if you said, hey, I'm putting Clark Lea, or if I'd have put Clark Lea at 8, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. But yeah, Ralph, any questions?
Yeah, mine's just one. I think that Napier being at 12 with Stoops above him is just, I don't know. I think Napier going into this year is a more exciting coach this year. Stoops really just hasn't shown me enough in the last few years to really, I mean, yeah, he can keep his job because it's not a football school right now, but eventually someone's gonna get tired of watching the 7-5 and then the occasional 9-win season and then go to a 4-win season. They're gonna get tired of watching that. They're gonna have to change the old culture there, and he ain't gonna be the coach. And someone's gonna get tired of this. And I think with Napier, I think last year we really had him. We talked about him getting fired after Tennessee or before Tennessee, and obviously didn't have the best season. They had a lot of injuries, obviously, and a few guys banged up, but they had a very impressive season. Especially upsetting Ole Miss and LSU. That's big for them going into this year. I think, and they got some really good transfers, and I think Napier's he's getting slept on a little bit. I think not you, but just from everybody, just because of what they did last year, not expect what they could do this year.
I'll say this, and I think Will's going to say something to that with Napier. And Will, you can save it for yours if you want to. Don't feel like you have to spoil it. For me, with it was Napier has taken Florida from the cellar of the SEC, maybe the bottom 4 teams, right? Like 4 or 5 teams coming in the season. We all talk about it, and everyone nationally talked about the fact that Florida was that team where, like you said, Ralph. I mean, you could have played 5 games and said, all right, when they get that first bye week, who's going to be the interim? And it kind of became a game where, honestly, if we're being real with ourselves, they didn't really have a true guy that could take over as the interim, so they kind of just stuck with him, and it paid off. Big wins against LSU and Ole Miss to kind of round out their season. And they go to a bowl game too. So, I agree with you. I think that the projection for Billy Napier in Florida is much higher than what Mark Stoops is at Kentucky. Kentucky was a disaster. 4-8 this past season. It snapped a stretch of, I believe, 6 straight bowl appearances for them. I do think Kentucky's a harder job to recruit to, and it's a harder job in terms of just where you and recruiting, obviously the biggest thing, and just quality of athletes you're going to have there. And then Kentucky just had they just missed badly on Brock Vanderiff, and the guy retired, and now they're going to roll with Zach Calzada. So if I'm talking about
Bigger
projection, Ralph, I'm with you. Napier's above Stoops. Just currently based on the body of work, I like what Napier's done. I would say if we're doing, what we should have done? We should have done like a pseudo BCS ranking so Will could feel good about himself and see like the point system.
Yeah.
10 hundredths of a point. That's the difference between these two guys for me. But no, I agree.
I mean, I completely understand where you're going with body of work. I just think if we're talking about entering 2025, I think I would just have Napier higher. That's just, it's all it's all opinion based, and no one knows anything because all this.
Well, JOH in Summerall doesn't exist, so I don't know who that is. But JON Summerall, he would probably be somewhere between
Johan.
Yeah.
You would have him that high.
The Auburn job.
Grief.
When he takes the Auburn job, he will be up in the top 5 overnight. The second
I'd give you top 8. I'd give you top 8.
You're looking at the wrong job.
But no, what I was going to say, it's more about Kentucky, and I'll get to it more when I go through my list. I think y'all's perception of Kentucky is outdated. I'll say I think Kentucky, some of the decisions they've made, they're posturing more like a football school.
That's true. Yeah. And they can be balanced too, right? I mean, Mark Pope's done he's done a good job there. I mean, they're not going to be the Kentucky of the 2010s that they were.
Right.
Like so yeah, you're right. You're right. They care about football. I don't want to say they don't care about football. I don't think that, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think they'll ever buy into football. They're not going to buy into football let's just talk about a team that has a terrible basketball program and a good football program, LSU. Like, they're not going to be to that magnitude of buy-in of what they're going to do by any means. So I do like Brian Jones. He says, look at Will using big words like posturing. Will did read the encyclopedia and the dictionary before he hopped on tonight's show. So there you go.
I know, shocking considering we went to the same university.
Yes. Well, he went to Columbus College, but all things considered. Yes. All right. So those are my rankings. Let's move along. Per Will Mannis. Will, what you got for us? I know a lot of stuff's the same, but you can take 2 or 3 points where you want to go, and then we'll ask you questions.
Yeah, I mean, just twisting the knife with Kirby Smart at number 1 for most people watching. You could. I don't think you have them queued up, but this was a good opportunity for you to pull up some classic Crowded Booth graphics made by yours truly about how Kirby Smart was just Mark Richt, and that proved to not be true. I don't think there's any question that Kirby Smart is not the best coach in the SEC. His resume, he's won 105 games in 9 years. Nobody has done that in the country. So obviously he's the best in the SEC. I got Brian Kelly at number 2. Mine was, so my list is kind of considering what happened in 2024 and what coaches have done at the place where they're at. And I factored in the total body of work. Nobody in the SEC has a body of work that Brian Kelly does. Brian Kelly's been a head coach for 21 seasons. He's won 195 games. He's won everywhere he's been. You look at his head coaching career, path going Central Michigan to Cincinnati to Notre Dame to LSU, you have to win to have that career path. So I don't think there's any doubting that Brian Kelly a great head coach. I think his obviously year one at LSU was a huge success. Playing in the SEC title game, and Rouse making a face. I don't know what that was.
You were frozen. You were talking really fast, but that's okay. You were just excited.
Oh, great. Love that.
But yes,
obviously, yeah. I mean, it set the bar too high for himself. I think making the SEC title game in his first year, and that's made the last 2 years look really bad comparatively. And Bryce, you've seen it firsthand. Just some head scratching, confusing losses. The last couple
historically
of years.
bad defense as well.
Yes, that too. Historically bad.
Yeah.
Historically bad. But yeah, I think I still would say Brian Kelly's really, if we're talking just head coach, you kind of throw out like the last maybe 2 seasons. Kirby Smart and Brian Kelly are kind of 1A and 1B. Just nobody has the pedigree that Brian Kelly has. Number 3, Steve Sarkisian, kind of the same deal. The dude's kind of won everywhere. He's gotten off to a better start than Brian Kelly has in his introduction into the SEC. But Sarkisian was better built for it, I think, having been the offensive coordinator under Nick Saban, had a job as offensive coordinator as the Falcons. So he was more ready for the SEC, and he's obviously been the right hire for Texas. He's brought Texas back for the 15 plus years where Texas was just in the wilderness, and Sarkisian has brought him back, making the SEC title game in 2024, making the college football playoff back-to-back years. He won a Big 12 on his way out. Texas's way out of the Big 12, won the conference. So he's number 3. I mean, I look at him and he's really a program builder. He won at Washington, which nobody had done for 10 or 15, 20 years. He does the same thing at Texas. He's a program builder, and he's built Texas back up. Number 4, Lane Kiffin. You look at Lane Kiffin, what he's done as a head coach, it kind of surprises you. He's been a head coach in major college football, FBS, for 13 seasons. He's got 106-52 record. You don't think about Lane Kiffin having that much of a winning record, mainly because you get to the end of the year and he can't get it done, and he's 1 game short almost every year.
Yeah.
But and a lot of people forget too, this is his second stint in the SEC. He spent 1 year as Tennessee's head coach before going to USC. After he was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders. I mean, Lane Kiffin has the strangest career path of any head coach in the SEC. Bryce, you mentioned it earlier. He's brought Ole Miss to heights that they haven't been to in decades, especially consistently. His work in the transfer portal, he's really, I would say, has popularized the use of the transfer portal. He has been money in the transfer portal, and a great marketer too. So he's number 4. 5 and 6, Heupel and Beamer. I'm with you, Bryce. I think I put Heupel over Beamer just for that playoff appearance. And Beamer has a ton of momentum. He had a great 2024. He kind of inherited a mess at South Carolina and has worked hard to have a good year like 2024 was. I think the big question now is can he keep it going? Kalen DeBoer, another guy that's won everywhere he's been, and the SEC this year in his first season proved to be just a different animal that he has not faced. Alabama still went 9-3. I mean, sure, they laid an egg against Michigan and lost the bowl game, finished 9-4, but we'll have to see. Can he take that next step? I mean, a lot of pressure following Nick Saban, which can argue is pretty unfair to Kalen DeBoer. But the way I see it is he knew what he was walking into. He's a serial winner. I think he can. He certainly has the resources to turn around quickly. But you follow Nick Saban, you're not going to have a long leash to live up to that. I put Clark Lee at 8 just because I think of him. He's shown he can adapt as a head coach in the hardest place to win in the SEC. Kind of changed everything going into 2024. It worked. Can he keep going? I think is the big question. I mean, some program defining wins. He beats Alabama. He goes on the road. He beats Auburn. He beats South Carolina. They were red hot when they played in November. And he won a bowl game, which not a lot of Vanderbilt head coaches can say they've done.
Yeah.
So to me, he's right there, just pushing to move up this list. Eli Drinkwitz, number 9. I like Eli a lot. I think the big thing for him is he's done a great job at Missouri. He's really awoken what was a sleeping giant in recruiting at Missouri. You mentioned the NIL that he's been able to build up and get that support. But Missouri's a tough place to compete in the SEC because you're really isolated, kind of out in the middle of nowhere geographically compared to the rest of the conference. And I think he's done a really good job. 50-25 record in 6 years as a head coach, 38-24 at Missouri. Mike Elko at 10. Just don't have much else to say that you didn't already say about Elko. Just got to figure out how to finish games in the SEC. Yeah. I'm putting Billy Napier at 11, just to, stay the course like he did last year, and was able to hang on to his job. Didn't change much, and things just started to click for Florida. He's got a ton of momentum. He's got a great quarterback in DJ Lagway. I see Gavin asked who will be the biggest riser in 2025. I think it's going to be Billy Napier. I really do. I think he's recruited really well at Florida, which is what he was brought in to do, because he inherited possibly the biggest mess of any head coach in the last several cycles in the SEC. And it looks like now he's kind of starting to turn the corner. At 12, I have Hugh Freeze. I could sit here all night and just pick apart the last 2 years at Auburn for Hugh Freeze. 11-14 record, inexcusable. I mean, I know he inherited a terrible roster, probably the worst roster in the SEC, worse than Vanderbilt, worse than Mississippi State. But the way Auburn's lost, and with his track record, 11-14 is inexcusable. I think he has the hottest seat in the SEC coming in to 2025. There's no excuse for him now. I mean, he's turned the roster around. There's no reason Auburn can't win at least 7 games. And if not, he'll probably be paid handsomely to play golf every day.
Yeah.
I have Jeff Lebby at 13. Kind of feel the same way that you do, Bryce. Really an incomplete, but watching Mississippi State play, they were in a lot of games last year. So those players, they play for him. And I think that's a really good sign. They went 2-10, which is
not good.
Terrible. I mean, no, you feel like no program in the SEC should ever go 2-10, no matter the circumstances.
They shipped out Percy Lewis to Auburn, so they did something right.
Well, the show has been derailed. We'll see you later. No. Yeah, I got what you're saying.
But yeah, I think showing how those players played for him is a really good sign moving forward. Whereas for Brent Venables, I know Oklahoma was ravaged by injuries, but just felt uninspired down the stretch. I mean, they beat Alabama, but that was just a weird game from start to finish. I think the Dillon Gabriel situation is a huge black mark on his time at Oklahoma. A lot of question marks as far as recruiting and transfer portal goes, which is very concerning with as competitive as it is now and as important as the transfer portal is. That concerns me. I think he's probably has an F grade as far as that goes. And just has been lackluster. I feel like Oklahoma has gone downhill every year since he took over the job. I don't think he's in a good situation either as far as keeping his job. 15, I have Mark Stoops. I mean, he's been really good for Kentucky. both of y'all saying it's well, it's a basketball school. I think Kentucky has turned the corner toward being a football school. They told John Calipari, no, we're not going to
Doing this
give you a new
anymore.
contract. We're not going to give you a new facility. We're going to invest in the football program. And to tell John Calipari that, a guy that's won a national title, and you can say, well, he only won one at Kentucky. The hardest national championship to win is the men's basketball national
So many
title.
factors. Yeah.
Yeah. So for them to being the quote unquote basketball school they are, to look at probably one of the best coaches in America in men's college basketball and say, no, you can't have whatever you want. I think that they're turning the corner. I think Mark Stoops is in a very precarious situation. He's done great. He's elevated this program, but I think he's elevated it maybe too high for himself, or for himself at Kentucky. Maybe he could reach those heights somewhere else, but he's just been at Kentucky for so long, 12 years at Kentucky. He's done a great job, but it just felt uninspiring down the stretch. And you mentioned the quarterbacks in the portal. They've missed on 3 quarterbacks. Well, I'm already calling Zach Calzada a miss, but of course I'm transferred
Incarnate
over
Word,
to
man.
play a game.
Lighten it up at Incarnate Word.
Well, yeah. Well,
Was.
Devin Leary and Brock Vandegrift were just
Bad.
huge misses in the portal
Yeah.
for Kentucky. So he doesn't inspire me there. And then 16, Sam Pittman. I love Sam Pittman. He was the perfect guy for Arkansas at the perfect time. He's been the perfect bridge head coach for Arkansas. But he's not going to elevate this program any more than he already has. So that's really it on Sam Pittman. Just perfect bridge head coach for the Arkansas program.
I don't have any questions. I mean, I know you covered a lot, and we talked a lot when I talked about it. Ralph, you got anything for him?
No, because I think I'm gonna hit on a few things that that if I didn't agree on, or if I have a different opinion on, I'm gonna hit on it differently in mine. So,
All right. Ralph Leary's. Hit on a few.
Well,
Let us know what you're thinking.
let's be honest here. Our top 3 have been the same. Top 4 have been the same 4 people the entire 3. So Kirby, Steve Sarkisian, Kiffin, Brian Kelly. Bryce asked me earlier why I have Lane Kiffin over Brian Kelly. Going into this year, I just feel like Lane Kiffin's got a really solid roster. Not saying that LSU doesn't, because I think they brought in some really good talent for wide receiver to help out Nussmeier this year, or AKA Statue, as Gavin calls him. I really like Caden Durham, but they didn't really use Caden Durham halfway through the season because he has all his toes and fingers are broken apparently. But top 4 is just the top 4. I think they're the best coaches in the SEC.
Hold on, wait, Ralph, you're forgetting the major addition by subtraction in that LSU secondary.
I wasn't going to bring that up tonight. We were going to avoid that situation because when he gets drafted by the Falcons this year, Bryce is going to be excited. Look, I got Shane Beamer at 5. I wanted to talk specifically about Shane Beamer because I think what he's doing right now at South Carolina. They ended the season on a bad note with the loss in the bowl game, but against a very good Illinois team. He got some really good talent coming in there, and they kept a lot of young guys. Dylan Stewart, obviously one of the elite freshmen this past season, with an incredible freshman season. You got to calm down on the celebrations, obviously. Lenora Sellers coming back. I think he's primed to have a way better season this year. You're talking about they should have beaten LSU at home, should have beat Alabama on the road. 2 games they should have won. And they're just you look back at their season and they had the blowout loss against Ole Miss. I feel like they had a weird season when they could have been in the playoff and they could have been in the bowl game they played in. It's just one of those seasons like, well, things happen. The same with Ole Miss. They had games where they blew out, Arkansas, and then they come and play Kentucky and get beat at home. Like, it's just a weird season. Another one, Clark Lee. I think Will said it earlier about Clark Lee. Taking over the defense, having him at 9, obviously, is huge. I think they took a giant step this past year. I love what Matt Rule said 2 years ago when he got to Nebraska, is that I may be coaching y'all this year, but I'm also coaching for the guys in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's including recruiting. So Clark Lee's got to recruit. I know it's hard to recruit there, but he's got to get himself a quarterback for the future. You got to get him some guys to play the next year also. So that's why I'm looking to see what he does, not just on the field for coaching, but off the field recruiting wise, because that's going to be a huge step for them going forward and becoming a better program, becoming a typical bowl team program. I said earlier about Napier. I think Napier is going to take, Gavin, yes, who the biggest riser is. I think we're all on Napier, I think. Definitely has a high ceiling this year that take Florida to a new level they hadn't been to in a while. With Lagway coming, being there, their freshman running back coming back. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They bring in the receiver from Oregon that committed to Oregon and decommitted to sign with Florida last minute on national signing. You gotta love those last minute flips.
Minute flips, man.
Those are so much fun to watch. Not really. But Florida's got a really talented roster. They're going to bring in some more transfers probably when the spring portal opens up, and just kind of stack this roster to help them out. Oh my gosh! No one read the comments, please. But going off Napier, I think this is a season. Like I know last year we were all on him saying he might not even be coached halfway through the season. Obviously, I don't think he's on the chopping block this year because I think the potential is there if Lagway stays healthy, if their offensive line can stay healthy. I think you're talking about a 9 to 10 win team possibility.
Ooh.
If injuries happen, you're talking about a 4 to 5 win team possibility. This offense is going to go fully through Lagway. This team has to play by Lagway. You see what he brings to the table in big games, especially against LSU and Ole Miss, and those 2 games in the season. So, very interesting team for me going into this year, but I'm really excited for them. They bring in Harrison Bailey, the 15-year career backup quarterback.
Yes,
it's a wild addition to that team.
Veteran presence, right? Isn't that what we call it?
Yeah, you could say that. I'm not saying speak anything on Hugh. Not much. I think this is a really big season, obviously, for them. I know that's probably the easiest thing to say, but recruiting wise, what Hugh's done is very impressive for having the 2 seasons he's had there. He's bringing elite talent. I think he's getting some guys in there who can play. Look, this is why I didn't want to say anything because I know he's going to do this. Doesn't matter. He's bringing in guys who could change this program around, and I think that's a stepping stone for Auburn going forward. Is Jackson Arnold the guy who is his career saver? I have no idea. I cannot tell you. I will not know what Jackson Arnold looks like until week 4. When they play a real team. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. They play with Baylor week 1. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to end on
why would you think Jackson Arnold's going to be good?
All right. I'm going to go to Sam Pittman.
All right.
And why I have him at 16. I'm not putting Levy at 16 because I'm not going to go off a 1-year coach. I can't downgrade a 1-year coach who walked into an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
A guy who's a very well-liked coach by his players. Well, he was really well-liked at Ole Miss, Oklahoma, at Mississippi State. He's going to get some guys in there. They just got to believe in him and trust him to do this because if they just, 2-year and kick him out, they're never going to be successful ever again.
Yeah.
They will be in a total wash system until they have to find a coach who can win them 5 games this first year and pray they keep them there after year 2. So, Sam Pittman at 16, you've been there for 5 years now. You're 30-31. You're 3-0 bowl games. You've been ranked highest AP was in 2021 when you were ranked 8th at one point.
That was when they went to Georgia for that college game day game, wasn't it? Correct. When they went to Athens, like that noon kickoff.
9-4 that year. Ever since then, you've been 7-6, 4-8, 7-6. If you do not win 8 or 9 games or 8 games this year, I think you have to get rid of them. Because Arkansas is a team that can win 9 to 10 games. They have a great foundation in NIL, a great fan base. They can win games on the road. They're not a team you can just sleep on. They are predominantly usually really good offensive line, good run game, good, pretty good quarterback play, good linebackers in the past. Arkansas always has just sleepers on the offensive and defensive line that have been really good in the NFL. There's tight ends. But Pittman's got to make a step this year. I cannot watch this team, blow out some FCS school by putting 70 on them and then go to double overtime with Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the year, obviously, we all thought Oklahoma State was going to be good, and Oklahoma State was horrendous. You blew a 3-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. That's bad. That was a bad season, I feel like, for Arkansas, and they really shouldn't have even hung in there with Auburn. Auburn shouldn't have lost that game in the first place, but somehow they stayed in that game by the sheer luck of Auburn not having to play, not having a quarterback. So,
yeah.
I mean, my list really isn't much different than everyone else's. Yeah, I mean, and that's playing with what kind of quarterback? They didn't have a quarterback either. He was playing with his foot. So
brutal. All right, so that's our coach rankings. Good stuff there as we take a look. You can see those on social media there as well. Now, Ralph teased a little bit of this, but we're going to talk about each of us is going to give one coach who makes the jump and then one coach that is firmly on the hot seat as we head into 2025. And Ralph, I'll let you go first on this one. So what coach, you kind of teased it maybe there for a little bit. Who takes the jump? Like when you look at your rankings, who's a guy you're like, you know what? He has the potential to rise maybe 2-3 multiple spots up my rankings board.
Can I have two? Because I said them earlier.
Yeah.
I'm going Billy Napier. I feel like somebody like an easy one for all us to pick. And my cold take one, that's a possibility. I'm gonna have to mute him. I'm taking Hugh Freeze also. I think this is a year Hugh Freeze can turn this program around to where they win 8 games. I like what they got coming in this portal. They got some pretty good offensive linemen. Have a good receiving crew coming back. The running back room is not bad. It's pretty well. You got a lot of running backs.
Got the number 1 and number 2 player out of the portal.
Yeah, you got Eric Singleton, who's going to be an elite receiver for Auburn,
and Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, look, I said you
got a really quarterback in the country, right?
Yeah. But look, I know, Will, there's a lot of things you don't want me to say about Auburn. I'm not going to get into it much. I think this is like a cold take one. I like the Billy Napier one way more, but I really think this could be a year that Hugh Freeze makes a jump, makes Auburn like a lot better program than they have been the past 2 years, past 4 years. 5 years.
It's because Big Dirt got paid.
Yep. All about Big Dirt, baby. Where's Gavin? Big Dirt it.
I like it. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. Billy Napier, Hugh Freeze on the same lines. Will, who's a coach that for on your board you're like, yep, good year. He's gonna leap up maybe 2 or 3 multiple spots.
And I don't know, maybe it's because he's already on the bottom half of the list, but I'm gonna say Jeff Lebby. Like you said, losing his starting quarterback, but he kind of learned the portal under Lane Kiffin a little bit. So what can he hit in the portal, I think, is the big question. But I mean, just doubling that win total from 2 to 4 would probably knock him a spot or 2 up the list. Just you got to consider what he's inherited. But the other one, staying in the state of Mississippi, Lane Kiffin. I mean, if Lane can get over the hump, he's beaten down the door of being a top 3 coach in the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think about. We're talking about a riser of a guy who's like number 3, arguably number 3, number 4 on the list. But it's like that's the one thing that evades Kiffin, right? Like just at least getting to Atlanta. And then if you win it, I think a lot of people view him in a completely different light as he's not just the guy who hits the portal hard. He's not just the guy that everyone can admit is a really good offensive play caller and really knows what he's doing. Now it's like, okay, he's rounded out into the maturation of like he's a good head coach. And I think you talk to people maybe in Oxford like, yeah, he's a good head coach. You talk to people around the program, it's like, yeah, he's a good head coach. But really, maybe believing that it was going to take for a lot of people to see him win in Atlanta and then hoist the SEC championship trophy. So I don't think I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Well, you did have a question about Jeff Lebby. So is Lebby on the hot seat if Miss State loses again? Now we're going to talk about hot seat here in a second. I don't know. I think there has to be an understanding of what he walked into. But if it was like another 2-10 season, like maybe you can't afford. I don't know. Like I think it'd have to be less than 3 wins. Like is that if they go 4-8, like
Yeah.
that's a 2-win improvement. You're still building. You're super young. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's got a 4-star quarterback coming into this class this year. And I'm not saying he is an instant star because he got Luke Kromenhawk coming in from Florida State,
That's
but
true. I forgot about that.
he's got some guys coming in that can help. He lost 26 in the portal and he's got 24 coming back in the portal. So the -2.
I mean, I don't know. It wouldn't be fair, I don't think. You know, if
I
if
agree.
he only wins 2 or 3 games again, I don't know that it would really be fair to fire him.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
You got to play the long game if you're Mississippi State, I think. Yeah, and Johnny comes back and says it would have to be a really bad year, in my opinion. Yeah, it would have to be really bad. I mean, it would.
A 1-11, 0-12,
Brutal.
and just
Same
got
even-
blanked. They got absolutely annihilated.
You know, if he's not getting along, if he loses control of the team, it'd have to be something like that. Like it would have to be like a complete 180, I think.
And they finished with a top 30 recruiting class. I was looking that up. So, like, I mean, there's things to be excited about. And I think to Johnny's point here, like, if you're Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State, it's one of those things where you have to understand where you've been, but also the sense of urgency of where you're going. And I'll just be real. Like, if you want to compare it to guys who made it to year 3, Hugh Freeze. Like, Auburn was a dumpster fire. People like to act like Auburn was, the roster was good enough to go win 9-10 games. Like, yes, they've underperformed. I'm not saying, they're not excusing that, but Brian Harsin ran them into the ground. And Mississippi State, although it's a different situation, complete dumpster fire. And you probably don't have the spending pedigree that Auburn does. So there needs to be some type of grace. And also, too, like Jeff Lebby, renowned offensive guy, like you kind of want to be patient because what if he is like the next great offensive mind and you weren't patient enough with him, at a place where what is really the expectation? Is it to go to Atlanta? I don't think so. It's win 7 to 8 games and playing a quality ball, and maybe you challenge for Atlanta every 5-6 years if you're Mississippi State. So
their schedule is really kind of unfavorable for them for the first 4 weeks because you play at Southern Miss to open the season up. So you're basically facing Marshall
True.
week 1.
the fighting Charles Huffs, yeah.
Then you're hosting Arizona State. Then you got Alcorn State. Okay. Good win, easy win. Then you got to face NIU. So Northern Illinois is coming downtown after a season they beat Notre Dame. So,
well, and look, you've already lost to a MAC school, got embarrassed by them last year in Toledo. So I don't know if you want to play MAC schools anymore if you're Mississippi State.
Well, there's a possibility that you start 1-5.
Well, and
There's
then
a
look at the conference schedule. They have to go to LSU. They play Florida. Right? They do play Florida, don't they?
No,
They don't play LSU. Mississippi State doesn't play LSU.
They got Tennessee at home, at A&M, at Florida, Texas at home, at Arkansas, Georgia at home, at Missouri, and then Ole Miss at home.
I thought they played LSU early in the year.
Well, to your point, in that
That
will
was 2020.
they've dropped that. LSU has lost both Auburn and Mississippi State on their schedule because of the new scheduling thing. So, but yes,
Maybe I'm
typically
thinking
that game's the first
years
conference
ago.
game. Yeah,
Right.
typically that game's the first conference game for LSU every year. No, that's a good question though. I think it'd have to be really bad, and I mean, without saying too much, like some things would have to really go wrong, like from behavior standpoint. I feel like to really kind of let them go to that. For me, you guys talked about Billy Napier. That's a guy I could see rising. And I think it's appropriate that Dr. Bob has entered the chat because I think Mike Elko's a guy that could rise 2 or 3 spots. And obviously it's going to depend on what happens elsewhere. But, and I the one pushback, I sent this to a couple LSU guys, my rankings earlier today, and they're like, well, hey, whoa. Texas A&M embarrassed Missouri this year in Elko's first year. And you got Elko behind them. And I think it's just the body of work of what they've done in their current roles, kind of like what you mentioned, Will. That's kind of why I had Drink ahead of Elko. I think A&M and Elko could easily pass. Easily pass to continue. That what a comment! What a comment by Maxwell.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's crazy. No, I saw it up the corner of my eye, and that was just wow. That being said, I think a 9-3 season for A&M to me puts. I know people are going to joke about money spent and everything, but you got to realize how hard it is to win, and especially in the new era of what we're looking at. 9, 10 wins, even 8 or 9 wins more is going to me, in my opinion, it could put A&M ahead of, what Missouri does, because they're going to recruit at a really high level. And as long as the wins come, it's going to be impressive. And truthfully, with whatever DeBoer and Alabama do in year 2, if they stumble again, if they go 8-4, 9-3, I could see Elko moving up, not just because of what happens in front of him, because I do think he's a good football coach. And I think year 2, you kind of trim some of the fat that you have guys in the building that think they want to be a part of the new regime. I can't say that. I think Mike O is a really good football coach. So that's my guy that's going to take a jump. And what I mentioned, when we say jump, it's multiple steps up in the rankings. So, and you know what, too, Will? Like, he's got the guts to be able to go out there and win football games, right?
You can't say that.
Well. All right. Lastly, before we get out of here, who's on the hot seat? We did get the question about Jeff Levy, so that was a good one that pertains to this. But, Will, I'll let you have it. Who is on the hot seat heading into 2025?
I already told you, it's Hugh Freeze. It's Hugh Freeze. I mean, you can talk about the mess he inherited.
Oh boy, wait, your mic's bad in and out. Like, how would you explain it, Ralph? What's happening?
I can't do it. You do it better than I do.
It's like cutting in and out, so it's like a connection thing. I'll let Ralph go first real quick. Go ahead.
On the hot seat, I got Pittman and Mark Stoops this year.
All right.
I don't think Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat just yet. I think they're going to give him one more year, unless it's just an absolute disaster season, honestly. But Stoops, I think it's just time to finally, either retire, just step down from coaching at Kentucky, go somewhere else, or do something. I don't know if it's his time to really, if it's his time's up at Kentucky, but I think eventually someone on that board is getting tired of watching this. And Sam Pittman, you have to be better. This has to be this is your last year. I mean, they shockingly brought you back. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I still think he's a good coach. But the last few years has been disappointing there, obviously. And I think with him sticking with you shows that they trust him, but he is on the hot seat. So I got Stoops and Pittman in mind.
I like that. I like that. I mean, I think that's fair. And I think what you talked about, I'll tell you, I've got the two on mine is definitely Sam Pittman. I feel like he saved his job this past season.
Yeah.
What does the Bobby Petrino, Sam Pittman marriage look like in year 2? There was an exciting element to Arkansas this past year. You mentioned
70 on Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Yeah. Well, there's that. But once again, I feel like maybe their fans maybe, were able to kind of put they were able to look and say, you know what, if this happened, that happened, maybe we end up with a better record. I'm going to go with another name here, and it's just interesting to me. I'm going to say Billy Napier, and I'm going to say this is why. He's a riser, but he's also on the hot seat, because I think if for some reason it doesn't work out, I don't know how you could go with him into the next year, if that makes sense. And that might be a hot take, but
no, I think it's okay to say that.
If you go 6-6, it's like, well, yeah, you got us to this point, and I think it begs the question here of, is he just a guy that brings a little bit of excitement, or is he the guy that gets you over the top? And if you're Florida, you can't just be looking for stabilizing head coaches. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to be able to push the envelope if you're at Florida, because that's a program that is built to win a national title in terms of what you need and the things that have to be in place to go win a title, right? Is Napier that guy? I don't know. There was a lot of excitement, and I'm not trying to downplay the excitement that he had towards the end of the season. Ralph, like you mentioned, the late flip, the kid from Oregon over to Florida, there's excitement building there. You have arguably one of the most God-given talented quarterbacks in the country coming back, very raw in DJ Lagway, but Lagway's a very, very good young man in terms of his ability to play football. So you have a lot of things going for you, but what if, Ralph, like you said, Lagway doesn't get hurt and they go 5-7?
Yeah.
Then you enter a time period where it's like you kind of have to take advantage of the talent you do have, and you can't waste it with a coach that's just kind of like, And before I throw it over to Will, and Will, if your mic's still messed up, maybe we just switch it over to your computer mic. I don't know. Yeah, it's still messed up.
We already know what his answer is.
I'll say this, and then I'll ask Will some yes or no questions. How about this? I think another program in a similar to what Florida is in is Hugh Freeze and Auburn, because there's talent to be had on Auburn's roster, right? Like we can all agree on that. It feels like it's a team that's a quarterback away from being 8 wins at least. That's bare minimum. The issue is with this though is that if you're Auburn and you go 5-7 this year, you got to go get the hottest G5 coach in the country, John Sumrall. We've all kind of joked about it. Or, and well, it sounds like it's better, so I'll hand it to you. Or you got to make some type of move because you can't waste what Freeze has built. He just might not be the guy to lead it there. And that's kind of where I feel like Auburn is, and that's why it's an interesting season because if you go 6-6, are you kind of like, you know what? Like it's another underachieving year. We need to make a move and we need to get this guy in here now so he can keep the guys that are talented and can keep the recruiting momentum going.
Yeah, well, first of all, disagree that Auburn's a quarterback away. They're about a quarterback and 5 offensive linemen away from being competitive. Just competitive. So they have to be creative. That's why you go get a Jackson Arnold, a guy that can move around in the pocket. That's why you go out and get a Deuce Knight, 5-star quarterback, so you can kind of start to build it. But it's interesting that you say that maybe Hugh Freeze is the guy to build it, but not the guy to lead it, because being an Auburn fan myself, I talk to a lot of Auburn fans. There's a lot of Auburn fans that feel that way too, that have felt that way since the day Hugh Freeze was hired. Like, yeah, he's going to get the roster back, but is he going to win a national title? That's always been the question, which was kind of the expectation now at Auburn. And, it's even harder to win now playing a 12-team playoff. So is he a guy that gets Auburn into the playoff and competes for a national championship? So it definitely is Auburn. Or Hugh Freeze definitely is, I think, has the hottest seat because 11-14 is inexcusable at Auburn. And especially to go 5-7 last year with a better roster on paper than you had in year one when you went 6-6 and made a bowl game. Pete agrees. Pete is just as passionate that Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat and Hugh Freeze is in trouble. So you got to win games, and I don't know if you pull the trigger on Hugh Freeze, but I think you certainly ratchet up the pressure on him to be like, hey, you need to go get somebody that can run this offense. Don't, because all you've done on offense is hire yes men, to put it bluntly. He's hired yes men on the offensive side of the ball that know what he wants to do, which is good and fine, but these aren't guys that have ever moved the needle in major college football.
And look, I mean, obviously the news that came out, you re-up DJ Durkin to some historic type of money at the DC level. We're seeing that market just kind of skyrocket with a lot of DC moves, this past offseason, or this cycle, I should say. But to your point, I just wonder what the breaking point is for Auburn. Like, at what point do you say, this guy can recruit? Like he can sit in at a kid's house in front of his parents and they can get the deal done. The problem is when we get him into the facility in the field, it's not translating. You need a ball coach, and man, there is one down in New Orleans that he knows how to coach some football, and I just would love to
recruit good too.
Yeah, and you know what? If you recruit good and you play good, I think the Eagle flies good.
That's the biggest question. Did the Eagle fly good? That's all we're worried about.
I like it. No, that's the good stuff. That's good stuff. Ralph, Johnny Reed says, I'm a UL grad. Parker may run Troy into the ground. Good God. That is we've already had one soapbox.
May?
But Johnny also says Auburn needs to be better. Too much counting on it. And I agree. I think
let's avoid I'm not getting to that tonight.
Yeah. Dr. Bob says, just give Dr. Bob a conference title and a playoff appearance before Sumrall leaves.
Hey, beat Memphis and you'd already have it.
Oh, yeah, for real.
Just saying.
Beat Memphis.
Just saying. Win your games. It's easy to make the playoff. Just win your games.
I love it. I wanted to ask you guys this. Is there anybody else, like anyone have another name that they're kind of looking at, like could be on the hot seat? I mean, Billy Napier's a stretch.
Kalen DeBoer.
Yes.
Talk about it. I want to hear it.
Kalen DeBoer. I mean, there's
speak your mind.
Several, Alabama fans that, against my better judgment, I do speak to, and they're certainly not happy with year one of Kalen DeBoer. So they're looking for big changes quickly. Ryan gets Ryan Grubb, who he wanted to bring with him initially from Washington, but ended up getting the offensive coordinator job for the Seattle Seahawks. That didn't turn out well for him. Now he's going to come back down and be with DeBoer at Alabama. So big expectations at Alabama, which is no surprise. But, he got his guy, his number one choice at offensive coordinator. If that offense isn't better, Alabama could be looking in another direction, even for a head coach.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you there. Comment section's wild, so that's where we're going to end tonight's show. But hey, we appreciate everyone tuning in all night and all evening long. Johnny says, first time watching the College Football Show. Good stuff, fellas. Appreciate it. Maxwell says something that's just wild. Dr. Bob says, Chattanooga. Oh, because Johnny said he's a UL grad, but he's from the Dirty Noog. His wife's a GT grad, so we found the channel. That's awesome, Johnny. That's awesome. Welcome to the show, man.
Don't ask Gavin about Chattanooga.
Don't ask him about the Dirty Noog. He's not about that life. I think Alabama wins 10 games and makes the playoff this year. Well, Dr. Bob, we're going to have way too early SEC prediction records, and we're going to talk about ACC coaches on Wednesday night, and I can't wait to do that.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
I can't wait to talk about. I don't even know who Wake Forest's coach is. If you asked me and put a gun to my head and said, "What's that coach's name?" I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I know he's from out west and he came over here. That's all I know. So there's that. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. Check out Underdog. Check out Georgia Golf Company all spring long as we lead up to the Masters. Guys, we're only 2 months away from the Masters. I mean, it's going to be here quickly. It's going to be here
from
quickly.
The start of spring. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. That's Ralph Leary, Will Manis. My name is Bryce Kuhn. We will catch you next time here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on.